And then if we want to go into the cuts, we can talk a little
Yes.
about the cuts. So
Right.
again, very illogical things that they're trying to do. One of the things we'll talk about, let's see, within the SNAP space, upwards of $300 billion worth of cuts, which is nearly a 30% cut of the entire program, the largest
Right.
cut the program has ever faced. What and millions of people will be removed from the program if this goes through. So, what are some ways this could happen? One is increasing the work requirement age. So, right
Right.
now, you are able-bodied and you don't have any dependents, like you're fit for work, you don't have any kids. You're supposed to be working between the ages of 18 and 54. If
Yeah.
you're not working, you can only get SNAP for 3 months within a 36-month period.
Yeah.
Once, if you are not making 80 hours a month, then you are removed from the program after 3 months. So not only do you not have any income, but now you also have no food support, which doesn't make any sense. That's not helping anybody. The Republicans seek to increase that age from 54 to 64. So now we're putting older adults into forcing them to find a job within 3 months if they're able-bodied and they don't have any dependents, forcing them to find a job that's giving them 80 hours a month, knowing that there's age discrimination, knowing that these minimum wage jobs that they could probably get within 3 months are going to be manual labor, a lot of time on their feet. They're not going to be desk jobs. The people in this age group have health issues that don't rise to a full disability. So there's so many variables at play here that are going to remove upwards of 3 million people in this age group from the SNAP program. So
Yeah.
that's awful. Secondly, is that there's also an attempt to expand the who is considered an able-bodied adult without a dependent, and bring in single parents whose children are over the age of 7. The thought process here is that, or from Republicans, that if your child is in school, that means you can go out and work. Now, think about let's logically work through this. If
Yeah.
for all the parents who are watching or people who know about kids, you know that kids suddenly get sick, and if a parent is working a low wage job, to be able to get off of work the same day without getting
Good
fired,
luck. Good
yeah,
luck.
without getting fired, and with paid sick leave. Good
Yeah.
luck finding that unicorn of a job. Uh,
Right.
Having affordable childcare so that maybe you got to put your kid into childcare after school is impossible. But then also, you're going to work a low wage job so you can receive SNAP benefits and have your kid in childcare and then just get the income and give it to the childcare agency. All for what? For to not be able to spend time with your own children?
Yeah.
Again, if you're a pro-family party, you're not going to put this on single parents who are already having a really hard time. And let's
Right.
not forget about school breaks, summer holidays, winter breaks, like months at a time where kids are going to be at home. So there's so much that's just resulting in one effect, that they want to remove people from the program. So
Yeah.
if you're a single mom or a single dad of 2 kids, that's a household of 3, if you are not able to meet these work requirements, then after the 3 month time limit, you are removed from the SNAP program. And so a household of 3 becomes a household of 2.
Yeah.
So benefits for an adult and 2 kids are now getting stretched even thinner because the SNAP benefit. I want to pitch this question to the audience. How much do you think the average SNAP benefit is per person per day? Don't look this up. Just whatever number comes into your head. What is the average SNAP benefit per person per day? And we'll talk about what that is. But Desmond, what do you think? Any idea?
Well, I would assume if you're talking about like the maximum or you said the average.
Average
Average,
per person.
I would probably say it's somewhere in the vicinity of maybe $5.
Just in $5. Okay, we got somebody in the audience saying 250. I was at a birthday party, and I was talking with the dad of the kid, and I asked him the same question, like, "Hey, how much do you think it is?" Uh,
Yeah.
he's like, "I don't know, $80 per person per day." So that's we got 80, we got 250, we got 5. Kathy's saying I don't think it's much. It's Lalisa. You can hit it. $6.16 per person.
Okay. Okay. I was close. I was close. I was close.
It's
But yeah, it's not much.
not much
$6 per person per day.
on
I
average.
mean, have you ever been able? I mean, like, truthfully, can anyone actually survive off of $6 for food for a day? I mean, can you even get a meal for $6 at this
You
point?
no, you can't. And I tried this. The organization I work at did a Snap challenge in March,
Yeah,
and I was really excited about this because this was during the month of Ramadan. So I
right,
was fasting, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make out so good because I'm already barely eating or drinking.
right.
So I thought I could do this very well. I could barely make it work. I could barely make $6 a day work, and I was already barely eating. So it's not possible. It is an inadequate benefit. So going back to the household of three, getting benefits meant for a household of two, you're not going to make it. It's not going to be possible. So we're going to see food insecurity increase in the richest country in world history, in the strongest country in world history. So that's going to be just a couple of the cuts that are proposed in this bill. Another
Right.
proposal, which is really like a very
And
want. You go
hold
ahead.
on really quick before we kind of go on to the next thing. I just want to kind of just add a little bit extra like layer of context to what you just said here, because I think at the end of the day, the thing that sometimes gets lost in these discussions is just maybe just like the real world impact of that, right? You're talking
Yeah.
about like, we're talking about $6 a day, $5 a day, like going from 3-person household to 2-person household. We are seeing right now from the corporations in this country an increase and increase and increase in price gouging. They hide behind the guise of inflation. We've been seeing over the years now just their record profits soaring. So they are making so much money off of the backs of inflation. So because there has been some inflation, they've been using that as like an excuse to raise their prices even higher. They are now seeing record profits that they have not seen for 70, 80 years, right? So at the same exact time that's happening, and everything in the grocery store is getting more and more expensive. When you go in there, just think about walking out, how much food you actually got for like $50 compared to what it was even just 5 years ago, forget 10 years ago. Now, they want to reduce the amount of money that the poorest people in this country can go to the grocery store and buy food with. That is the impact of this kind of legislation. I just don't want that to be like lost in this conversation, because we are talking about people, the poorest people in our country, being able to go in a grocery store and buy less food than they could before, because that is what they want to do in order to fund the tax cuts for the billionaires.
Exactly, and that's a very important point. Like these cuts do not need to happen. It's not
Yeah,
happening to like save money. It's not happening to
right.
save the budget. It's literally happening to do the biggest wealth transfer in history. And
Yes.
it's a reverse Robin Hood. It is a hood
Yes.
robin. We are robbing from the neighborhoods and giving it to the richest folks. So it doesn't make any sense, Desmond.
No, it does not.
I wake up every day wondering, is this still happening?
Right.
And it is. But so another thing that they're trying to do is shift the cost of the programs to the
Yeah.
states. And if
Right.
anybody's ever worked as a state advocate or with their state legislatures, then you know that there's very little money to work with in a state legislature. So I was just talking with some, sorry, I have a case of reconciliitis. I was talking with some advocates in Michigan, and just
Yeah.
saying, hey, if this cost shift happens, and it's based on a bunch of things like payment error rates and increasing what the state puts in for administration, if all of this happened, then Michigan, based on previous numbers, would be on the hook for $1 billion extra every year out of their own budget. So what this means is that they can't afford that. No state is going to be able to afford any of these cost shifts. What
Right.
this means is that states would pull back on any types of options they've put in or expansions they've had and remove entire families from the program. Programs, like you've said, are helping people afford food at a time when food prices are increasing and
Yeah.
these people are in need. So, what also happens is that children who are in these households, if they lose SNAP benefits, they lose their direct certification for free school meals
Yeah.
and their adjunctive eligibility to with the WIC program if they're under 5. So it's not just a ripple effect, but a shockwave that's going to happen. And then also the real world impact, as you were talking about, is all the 260,000 plus retailers across the country who accept SNAP benefits.
Right.
If this 30% cut happens to SNAP, that's a 30% cut essentially to all of these retailers' bottom lines. It
Right.
is a cut to what farmers are going to be getting as well. And farmers have already lost billions this year, and they lost 20 billion last year because of all the disasters. So how are they going to make out? Everybody's going to get impacted. It's going to not just be something that impacts the roughly 42 million folks on Snap, but if a store that had a lot of participants coming in from customers from Snap coming
Yeah.
in, if all of a sudden they're reducing their income by 30%, then they're going to have to increase prices.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
none of us are making that much money extra, or so we're not going to be able to afford going to that store. And so then the store is going to close down. So this shockwave is going to be turning into a tsunami over the
Right.
next few years. And then, oh, they know it's as unpopular, so these big cuts are going to, if they passes, would go into effect starting in fiscal year 2028.
That's how you know it's so morally bankrupt, and that this has, this was never anything other than just them trying to find ways to, cut certain programs to help their billionaire friends out. They want to make it so that basically, because they're assuming they're going to get clobbered in the next election, and so you want to make sure that all of these things go into effect underneath the next administration, so that you can turn around and say that it's all their fault, that has nothing to do with you, and see how much better things were when we were in power. This is a tale as old as time, truthfully speaking.
And we cannot forget what they tried. Like they do this with the IRS. They cut
Yeah.
the budget for the IRS. A year later, they say, "Look at them; they can't perform." And everybody's like, "Yeah, you're right. The IRS is not performing." And then let's cut their budget. And then, and what Biden had hired, like what, a few tens of thousands of folks or something like that, and that
Yeah.
was helping improve things. And then they got removed by Doge.
Yeah.
So it's a terrible cycle we're in.
It definitely is. Honestly, just reminds me of I think there's a clip that I use pretty consistently on memes that I make, where it's Jon Stewart talking about how Republicans, basically their entire, ideology behind their party is, when they get into power, breaking everything in sight, and then turning to their constituents and saying, like, see, government doesn't work, what did we tell you, got to keep us in power now. So it just, again, tale as old as time. But was there anything else that we wanted to kind of like touch on about SNAP Medicaid before we kind of like transition to our next topics here?
Yeah, I mean, Medicaid is going to get clobbered through this as well. I mean, upwards of 10 million folks will lose their health care coverage.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, these are the poorest folks in America. If they
Right.
don't have health care coverage, what is going to happen? They're going to have to go to the emergency room, which is even pricier. It's going to cost the government a lot more. They're going to fall into medical debt, a lot more homelessness, bankruptcy. Yeah, just another shockwave that's going to go across the country. And then we got to also consider the folks who are receiving both SNAP and Medicaid, or both
Right.
SNAP and Medicare. It's going to be devastating for millions of folks, all in the name of giving money to the richest folks in history.
Without a question. And as somebody who's been on Medicaid and who has also not been on Medicaid, I can tell you that the years that I was not on it, my medical bills went through the roof. Thousands and thousands of dollars with medical bills, bills that I'm actually still paying back to this day for chronic health problems that I was having. It is Medicaid is a lifesaver. It
Mhm.
truthfully is. And as many people have noted, medical bills, medical bankruptcy is the number one form of bankruptcy in America. In this country where we have more than enough resources and money to have universal health care, we have people going broke all over the country because they got sick, could not afford the bills that came from seeking treatment. Like, that's absolutely patently insane. And so now we are trying to take what little services we have and cut them even further. I don't want to live in a society that does that. And I don't think that most anyone else really does either. So I think we need to be constantly fighting back about this, speaking up about this. I'm glad that we are talking about this today. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me about this.